Greetings. Welcome to the Dr. J Vlog series. It's Monday, February 3rd, 2025. On Mondays, we consider mathematics and statistics. Today, I hope I have a little bit of a special treat for you in this regard. So don't turn off the computer or change the channel. I think you'll find this quite interesting, or at least what I'm about to share with you. So, when I was in university, many moons ago, I think it was back in the Paleozoic era, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I was, I took a lot of courses, and I had a literature course in particular that I loved. And in that literature course, I remember reading a story titled "The Lottery" by Shirley Jackson. So that story was actually published originally back on June 26th of 1948 in the New Yorker, a short story. And the basic idea, the basic theme of the story was that this fictional US town held a lottery each June, once a year. And the purpose of the lottery was to, at least in their, in terms of their culture, their rituals, the purpose of the lottery was to hopefully ensure a bountiful harvest later in the summer and to eliminate all bad omens for the rest of the year, that sort of thing. So um, the work is particularly memorable because of Jackson's approach to the short story and how she describes in such memorable detail the different facets of the lottery without revealing what happens at the end or what the lottery is actually about. So I'm not going to reveal that either. Let's just say it has an unexpected ending. Okay. And the lottery at the time it was published caused quite a backlash. Many folks ended up canceling their subscriptions. Hundreds of people sent in hate mail, that sort of thing. Jackson delivered a lecture in 1960 in which she recounts the following in terms of the reaction to her short story. One of the most terrifying aspects of publishing stories and books is the realization that they're going to be read, and read by strangers. I had never fully realized this before, although I had, of course, in my imagination dwelt lovingly upon the thought of millions and millions of people who were going to be uplifted and enriched and delighted by the stories that I wrote. It simply never occurred to me that these millions and millions of people might be so far from being uplifted that day that they'd sit down and write me letters that I was downright scared to open. Of the 300 odd letters that I received that summer, I can only count 13 that spoke kindly to me, and they were mostly from friends. End quote. So I'll leave a link in the description below if you're interested in a really cool little 10 to 15-minute read. And that's my introduction today to the mathematical issue, the lottery. Have you ever played a lottery? Bought tickets for a lottery? Millions upon millions of people have, and of course, still do. Winning many of the most popular lotteries, though, is based on obviously statistical probability and chance, and specifically something called a hypergeometric distribution. So winning means that essentially you're drawing random numbers from a fixed number without replacement. The mathematical model technically consists of the probability of k number of successes in n draws without replacement from a finite population of size n that contains k number of objects. So that might sound a little bit abstract or a little bit obtuse, but it's really quite simple. We can apply the logic to calculating the odds of winning, for example, Ontario's incredibly popular Lotto 649 game. How popular? Well, approximately 2/3 of adult Ontarians last year bought tickets at some point in the year. And indeed, about 1 in 4 Ontario adults would be considered a regular consumer, that is, buying lotto tickets at least once a week. The tickets for the Lotto 649 currently cost $3 a piece. And obviously, the more tickets you buy, the greater your chances of winning. But in a nutshell, the game involves picking 6 numbers from a range of 1 to 49, inclusive, So you're going to pick six distinct different numbers. And if you pick all six correct in any given draw for any given week, you win the jackpot. That said, of course, you can still win even if you don't get six numbers correct. You can pick only two right, three right, four, five uh, as well. And I'm not going to force you to do the mathematics or ask you to do the mathematics. It's a bit more complicated because they also have the option of picking a bonus number. But here are the odds of the payouts according to the Ontario Gaming Commission for Lotto 649. And so ideally, of course, you're going to want to pick six out of six numbers correctly, but the odds of doing that are obviously stacked against you. So that said, you automatically win fixed amounts if you get either two or three numbers right. A free play for two numbers, yippee! And then $10 if you get three correct numbers. It's better than nothing. Sounds good. But then if you look at the odds, look in the table that I've created there, what are the odds of getting even two or three numbers correct? The odds for getting two numbers correct and a free play are 1 in 8.3. And the odds for getting three numbers correct are 1 in 56.7. So if you translate that into numbers, the cost of buying tickets, on average, you'd have to spend $25 to get those 8.3 tickets to win the one free play, guaranteeing nothing else. And it would cost you $170 on average to reap the reward of $10, picking three winning numbers. So you can see then that doesn't really seem worth it, does it? I mean, if you're just interested in having some fun and you just buy a random ticket, and if you win, great. It's all to the better. Maybe you want to give them away as a gift. As long as you're comfortable with the idea that the person's probably not going to win anything, or that if they do win, they'll share it with you. Uh, but the point is that the odds of winning are obviously stacked against you. And it's much harder then to pick four or five or certainly six correct numbers. So I've included the odds as well as the typical payouts that are expected for say, as an example, a $5 million jackpot. Some of them are much more, they do roll over and so forth, but a certain percentage of the pooled funds always is targeted for those people who pick four right, five right, or six right. So if you pick two or three right, you're guaranteed the reward, either the free ticket or the $10, no matter what. But if you pick four, five, or six correct, you can see then the odds of doing that, and they go up astronomically. But then also, again, I've included the average payouts that you can expect based on a $5 million lottery. You can have multiple winners at four or five right numbers, even at six. But just for the argument's sake, let's just say in a standard or an average $5 million lottery draw, or the winning ticket wins $5 million, the numbers of the amount of money that's invested and the amount of pooled funds that each person would receive varies. That you'll see there that even if you get five out of six numbers correct, you don't win a huge amount of money. Again, according to the Ontario Gaming Commission, you win about $570. Again, assuming that there are many people who also have five numbers correct. If you're the only one, you'll win much more. And similarly with the jackpot, if you're the only person, and it's more likely than not that you would be, but if you're the only person who gets all six numbers correct, you would win that $5 million jackpot. Now, look, however, at what you'd have to pay on average and nothing guarantees it because it's all based on statistical probabilities. But on average, you'd have to spend almost $42 million in tickets in order to generate that one $5 million winning ticket. And so you see the problem. You're happy to win, obviously, that one time, but you'd still be in the red $37 million based on the probabilities involved. It's the metaphorical equivalence of, buying stocks and buying high and then selling low. Never a good strategy. And of course, you can increase your odds by buying more tickets. And certainly with larger lotteries, your payouts can be much higher. But here's the key point: your odds of winning with any single ticket don't change if it's this type of lottery, that is, right? In principle, you gain more value in terms of your payout, and you might want to buy more tickets if the jackpot's bigger in that sense, but still, the odds of winning are astronomically low by comparison. Okay. Um, and so, for example, well, I guess the one other factor is to consider, well, what's the nature of the lottery? 649 isn't the only lottery. You can play other types of lotteries with other number distributions, and that'll change your odds dramatically. So, for example, what if you were to play Lotto 644 instead of Lotto 649? We don't actually have that in Ontario, I don't think. I'm not an expert on this. But in other words, for Lotto 644, we're changing the parameters slightly. So now you only have to pick six correct numbers, but the numbers now only range from 1 to 44 instead of 1 to 49. And if that's the case, then your odds of hitting the jackpot for Lotto 644, this fictional game, would only be 1 in just over 7 million versus the 1 in nearly 14 million that are required for Lotto 649. So basically, you have roughly twice the odds of winning Lotto 644 if it were out there compared to Lotto 649. Um, Now, beyond that, of course, there are many other kinds of lotteries, and some will have much better odds than others of yielding winning tickets or hitting the jackpot. I'd recommend reading up on the odds of winning, how much and with what kinds of investments if you're going to play a lottery, but just don't expect to win. Logically, you should go with the best odds and then play that particular game. But logically, too, your chances of winning, or at least of hitting the jackpot, will always be much greater, or sorry, much less than your odds of losing. So if you're prepared to lose and lose repeatedly and regularly, and it doesn't hurt you financially, by all means, go nuts. And sure, it's lovely to see the happy winners when they put them on the screen or put them in the ads, the smiling faces and all that sort of thing. But remember, they've literally beaten the odds, right? And so again, I'm happy to just talk about playing lotteries than actually doing it myself. Now, in addition, of course, there are many other forms of gambling besides playing lotteries, and the different types of gambling or the different games that are involved can further improve your odds considerably. In a casino, for example, the odds can vary dramatically from one game to the next in terms of what you play. And most people know, hopefully, this day and age, that there's certain games that are they're not tilted in your favor, but you have a much greater chance of winning at. And blackjack is, to my knowledge, still the best game to play in that regard because typically the house only has about a 1% advantage on average in playing blackjack in terms of winning compared to you. And furthermore, you're only playing against the dealer typically, right? And they're playing by a fixed set of rules. So statistically speaking, if you want to try to win in the casino, you're better off, or you have an almost 50-50 chance of breaking even. But over time, unfortunately, and playing repeatedly, most people then are still going to lose over the full sweep of their careers of gambling careers. And unless, or instead, if you play against other live, living, breathing, sentient human beings, if you want to be a successful gambler, you're always going to be better off playing against other humans rather than against the statistical odds per se of the different games. Again, assuming that you've developed your knowledge and your skill sets and you're able to outsmart or outplay your opponents, that sort of thing. Okay? And there's a reason then why some people make millions of dollars as professional gamblers, right? They've developed that expertise and their knowledge of human behavior and their ability to manipulate the odds in their favor or to play the odds or to bluff against others and have some level of success. Okay. And so there are professionals that are just really good at what they do, just like there are professional basketball players who are amazing at what they do. Some of us might be really good or think we're really good as recreational players, but we just can't really compete with the pros unless we get lucky, right? So, in closing, life's obviously been compared in many respects to a lottery, and starting with our chances of being born healthy in the first place, but our genetic complements are a matter of statistical probability as well in terms of the mixing and matching of our gene pools, etc. And especially in terms then beyond genetics of our parents and the life circumstances into which we're born. I've often stated that our children have had to overcome tremendous odds simply by virtue of having me as their father in a genetic sense, right? Not the least of which because they've been saddled with roughly 50% of my genetic complement. And again, that's just speaking of the genetic limitations, to say nothing of personality and other problems. Um, but anyway, and the I'm trying to be a little bit funny here, but it is true that of the four boys, I come from a larger family. We have six kids, four boys and two girls, and I'm the youngest. And just comparing myself to my older brothers, I'm by far the poorest. Okay, the others are multimillionaires and so forth. I won't give out their names and addresses, but trust me, they've done much better in their lives financially than I have. Um, Now, what's interesting is on top of all of that, they have a whopping one child amongst the three of them. One child, despite all of that money. Whereas, in contrast, my wife and I, with our blended family, have five boys aged 28 to 35. And so we didn't have all that money that the rich folks in our family have had, or others have, obviously. But we figured the smart thing is, invest wisely. So what we chose to do was invest in having five children. And we figured that, statistically speaking, the odds are at least one out of the five would do really well financially and hopefully take care of us later in life, all that sort of thing, right? And if nothing else, we were hoping, we were betting again, playing the odds that perhaps those boys, again, they're all aged 28 to 35 now, right? The youngest twins are 28 and the oldest is 35. We figured one of them, at the very least, would successfully reproduce, have a child, or multiple children, that we would have grandchildren, right? And do you think any of them have been able to do that yet? Nope, nada, zilch, no grandchildren. Um, And, here I am in my 60s wondering where are all the grandchildren? Well, others of my friends and, you know, associates have grandchildren now, but we're left grandchildless, at least at this point. So, what I decided to do, always thinking, right, is to offer each of them a $10,000 baby bonus if they just have one child. That's all. I'm not even being greedy or, just one child, right? I mean, they all have partners. So technically, theoretically, it's possible, you'd think, right? And so, in effect, I'm just playing the odds from a statistical standpoint that at some point, one of them should have had, or at least in the next decade, will successfully procreate, right? But I'm starting to think I might be better off playing Lotto 649. Well, but then I'm humbly reminded that I've indeed already won the lottery five times because we have Ryan and Lucas and Caleb and Cheyenne and Aryan. And how much are they worth? Well, make me an offer. No, seriously, I used to use that line all the time. I would sell them or trade them for millions of dollars. So, by that measure, obviously, we are multi-millionaires. The money's just not in our bank accounts or stock portfolios or anything like that. So, until next time, as ever, may you and yours continue to create peace in your lives and nurture love in your hearts. And remember, you're probably a millionaire too. See you next time.